Hey everyone. Today we are actually going to be getting into our history curriculum for the school year. Before we get into anything though, I want to talk to you about what this semester is going to look like and the topics that we're going to be covering. What you see on your screen right now is our curriculum guide for our power unit. At the beginning of the school year, I talked how we're going to be covering two different units, and power is the first one. Um, every unit is kind of set up the same way, where we have the overarching theme for the unit, which again is power. We have a time frame which this year you can more or less ignore because that time frame is going to probably change just due to our current circumstances. Every unit has an essential question. So our essential question for the power unit is, how is power acquired, exercised, and abused? So every topic that we look at, we're going to return to this question and try to answer it with examples from our three topics here: World War I, World War II, and the Cold War. Right? Now, each topic also has its own question, which ties back into the essential question, which is, how was power during World War One acquired, exercised, and abused? And then it has supporting questions that'll help us answer that. And these are very specific to the topic that we are going to be covering. So you can see the supporting questions for World War One. What caused World War One and who held positions of power? How did specific military tactics and weapons change the face of war? How did specific events during World War One affect the outcome? What events brought the United States into the war? How did propaganda affect the war effort? And how did the Treaty of Versailles end the war? So those are the questions that we're going to be answering as we move through this unit in order to answer our compelling and essential questions about how power was exercised, acquired, and abused. At the bottom, you will also see key concepts and terms. These are ideas and terms that you're not necessarily expected to come into this unit knowing already, but it should be information that you know leaving this unit. Okay, so by the time we're done, these are all things that we should be pretty familiar with because we will have talked about them with quite a bit of depth. Okay, and then topic 2 and topic 3 are set up in very similar fashions. Okay, as you can see here, our first topic of the school year is going to be World War One, which takes place starts in 1914 and goes until 1918. The United States doesn't get involved in World War One until 1917, but there are some things that cause World War One that we definitely need to be familiar with, and so that's where our first lesson is actually going to begin. Okay, I'm actually going to take you to a place in the world here known as the Balkans. Okay, if I zoom out here and kind of see where we are in the world. Okay, so here's the United States way over here across the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, a little blue dot is where my current location, which is Franklin Middle School. Okay, the Balkans are these tiny little countries right here. Okay, we continue to zoom in here, kind of have an idea of where we are. Okay, they're named after the Balkan mountain range that runs right along this area here. You can kind of see that darker green. All right, it really takes up a lot of Bosnia and Serbia, and eventually ends at the Black Sea. Right? This area, at the time of World War One, is a very tense area for a few reasons that we'll get into here in a minute. But this becomes known as the Balkan powder keg. And it's called that because it's kind of comparing it to a barrel full of gunpowder. Okay? And for those of you who maybe are a little bit more familiar with some older technology, gunpowder is what is ignited to fire bullets out of old style guns. Right? And in large amounts, if it catches fire, it can explode. So it's called the Balkan powder keg because it's not going to take a whole lot, just one little spark, and this whole region could just erupt in war. And we're going to find out that that's kind of what happens. And I won't go into too much detail quite yet because I want you guys to kind of do a little bit of reading and some work that goes along with this before we get into the details. Okay, but we're gonna figure out why is this area, why is Europe in general kind of on edge, right? Why is it so tense in Europe that is going to lead to a war that consumes the entire continent? Okay, so for your assignment today, okay, you are going to do a little bit of reading. You're going to read this article here, which is linked in Canvas, okay, about the four main causes of World War I. Now, the word main here is an acronym. Each of these letters stands for something. The M stands for militarism. The A stands for alliances. The I stands for imperialism. And the N stands for nationalism. Okay, so you are going to read this article. All right, it's not super long. All right, a lot of pictures. Okay, and then either as you read or after you read, you're going to work on this assignment, which again is linked in Canvas, about each of those four main causes. Okay, so for militarism, okay, you're going to describe what militarism is according to this article and how it was a cause of World War I. Okay, what did militarism have to do with World War I? Okay, and you're going to go on to the next one, alliances, and then imperialism, and then nationalism, doing the same steps. All right, first of all, you're defining what it is, and then how did it cause an entire continent, eventually, multiple continents, to get involved in a war. Okay, so that is going to be your assignment for today. As we move forward, we're going to spend a little bit of time on each of these four items. Okay, so we will become very familiar with what militarism is and what the alliances are, what is imperialism, what is nationalism, and how does all this lead to a war. Okay, this is kind of what sets up that Balkan powder keg situation where it just takes one little spark to set the whole thing off. Make sure that if you have any questions, you can either message me or email me, or you can ask them in class when we see each other here this week.